Okay, now we can start.
Now it's ready to go. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the April 23rd, 2024 installment of the Cascade Locks Port Commission budget meeting. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
President Ryan,
I am here.
Vice President Clute. Here. Commissioner Nance.
Here.
Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
And
Commissioner Queen. Here. Committee member Moore. Here. Committee member Valental. Here. Community member Torres.
Present.
Committee member Olvera. Here. And committee member Kelty.
Here. All right. Modifications, additions, and changes to the agenda.
None.
Fantastic. All right, we'll start with the election of budget committee officers.
What we need to do is now elect our president and vice president of the committee. We accept a motion on that, need to be seconded and then voted on by everyone present.
I'll make a motion. Oh, can I make a motion in this? I can.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, I will make a motion to have Donna Moore as the president of the budget committee.
I'll second the motion.
Motion.
Donna Moore okay with that?
Oh, are you okay with me? Okay.
Not in first ready yet.
Okay. Motion seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're good.
And we need a vice president.
Somebody else to entertain a motion for
Who would like to be my president?
Diana has held that position before.
I can do it.
Okay, fantastic. So I'll make a motion to.
I won't be here the last, I mean, if it goes three,
I don't think it will.
okay, I don't either, this is clean. It looks
Yeah,
good.
so, okay, so I'll make the motion to have Van as the vice president of the budget committee.
I'll second that.
All right, the motion was seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Fantastic. Presentation of budget message. Jeremiah.
I will be reading this to you in full. We are pleased to present the fiscal year 2025 proposed budget. The budget is the organization's primary policy tool, reflecting programs and services to be offered to the community for the coming fiscal year, aligned with the estimated resources and costs to complete the work. Last year, the port moved away from developing a budget with three funds: the general fund, the development fund, and the reserve fund. The way these funds were presented for the budget is not consistent with the way the accounting records are set up, nor have the audited financial statement report the information. We have decided to combine all the funds into the general fund moving forward. The development fund has been added as a department within the general fund, and the reserve amounts have also been added as line items titled Reserve Fund for Future Expenditures. This year, we have continued to use this new format and have added a new department for port-sponsored event. The budget as proposed assumes that most existing services will continue at current levels. Important changes in service level line items for the fiscal year 2025 include the following. Admin added port-funded grants. This line item represents the port's community benefit initiative, through which it will award small grants to local businesses, nonprofits, and municipalities to support planning, programming, construction, and development projects that benefits the Cascade Locks economy. The proposed budget amount of $260,000 anticipates $110,000 award to the city of Cascade Locks to provide a portion of the local match required by the USDA for the electrical system upgrade project. The remaining $150,000 would be made available in competitive grant application and approval process. General Operations Department has capital outlay of $137,000. This includes $85,000 for the Visitor Center building electrical service to Ex-Hopper Restaurant, $42,000 for the, we changed that, sewer pump out.
Irrigation pump out.
Thank you very much, irrigation pump out, and $10,000 for house 3 enhancements. The stern wheeler has $75,000 in capital outlay for renovations for the visitor center building, including the stern wheel's sales office and public restroom area. For development, there's legislative appropriations for $2.4 million for business development. Bridge strengthening grant for $2.5 million of the total $6 million granted by the state of Oregon in 2024. This anticipates expenditures of $2.5 million in fiscal year 24-25, $2.5 million in fiscal years 25 and 26, and $1 million in fiscal year 26-27. It should be noted that the current legislative advocacy plan seeks an additional $6 million from the Washington legislature during the 2025 session. Bridge and God's Trailhead grants of $71,473. This is the portion of the $158,228 from the LGGP grant award in 2024 that will be expended and reimbursed in the next fiscal year, and the $19,000 Experience Mount Hood Gorge grant that provides a portion of the 20% local match requirement. Cascade Lost Trail System grant of $162,183. This is a portion of the $190,379 total project cost that will occur in the 24-25 fiscal year. 78.5% of these costs will be reimbursed via the RTP grant awarded in 2022. Proposed Business Oregon Planning and Marketing Fund grant of $50,000 to fund a feasibility study for a priority project in the strategic business plan. Oregon State Marine Board Assistance Grant in the amount of $6,000. This grant is awarded on a biannual basis. Debt service payments have decreased to $1,279,661 as follows. Business Park Road Improvements, $17,861. Herman Creek, Flex 1, $56,231. Herman Creek Flex 2 and 4, drawdown interest payment of $227,000, and annual principal and interest payments of $132,500. Business Park Flex 5, Freem, $393,000. Business Park Flex 6, $435,500, annual principal and interest payments. Truck payment of $17,236. No reserves will be spent this year. Reserves for future expenditures are $1,562,622. This includes bridge reserves of $1.144122, debt reserves of $408,500, and vehicle reserves of $10,000. Unappropriated ending fund balance of $3,109,091. An important aspect of municipal operations is comparing your resources with the beginning balance, operating resources, to your operating requirements. These include personnel, materials and services, and required debt service. For the proposed budget, operating requirements exceed operating resources by a notable amount of $581,316. This assumes Flex 6 remains empty for the fiscal year. Additionally, this includes $227,000 in a one-time interest payment and $555,000 in one-time IT projects. Without these one-time requirements would exceed new revenues by $299,316. If Flex 6 were to be leased, we would increase resources by over $500,000, and resources would then exceed requirements by over $200,000. Resolving the vacancy in the Flex 6 building is an important step to resolving the operating efficiency, in addition to other efforts to increase revenues. The board operates on a balanced budget where resources, including revenues and beginning balances, are equal to or more than the total requirements. In the budget presented, resources exceed requirements by $3,109,091. In closing, the proposed budget has been a team effort involving participation from all departments in its development. The overriding approach has been to prioritize long-term financial stability, along with near-term efforts to increase operational efficiencies, optimize revenue, and ensure commensurate public benefits in all important endeavors. So sort of the next step is that we will move through, go to move forward the agenda. Matt Afton, who is the board's budget officer, is also with Marina and Co. Who's been with us for a year and a half now, close to that.
So you're
Just about a year, going on just about a year. And we'll go through this page by page. We'll have opportunities for Matt to explain the budget, how it's read, some of the requirements that are need to be in it for Oregon statutes, and then an opportunity for you to ask questions as we move through. As a team, we'll answer those when we can, but Matt will take the lead on the presentation. Any questions? Thanks, Matt.
So just to kind of start off, what you're seeing up on the screen, what's in front of you on page 5 of the budget. This is the summary of all the resources and then also the beginning of the requirements. And if, I just want to draw your attention to the different columns. The first column is the actual for fiscal year 21-22. And then the second column is the actual for fiscal year 22-23. These are both requirements by the state of Oregon that your budget present 2 actual years followed by the budget that you're currently in. You're not required to put an estimate in there. The reason that we have that estimate in there is that factors in how we calculate the beginning balance for what's in our proposed budget. And so, as this process continues, there will be 2 more columns, one for the approved budget by the budget committee, which you guys will do, and then one that is the adopted budget. And then that will complete kind of the requirements for the state of Oregon to have all of those columns included in the budget. This first thing that we're looking at is the summary. So this is taking all the different departments and adding them all up into one to give kind of one overview of everything that's going on. So I'm not going to go over this one in a lot of detail because we're going to go into each department and we'll go into the details on those departments. But just to know that these all together come up to be the total. I guess a couple things to note in the total. The things that are significantly different on the revenue side from the 2024 budget to the 2025 budget is we did not include the lease rent or the lease for Flex 6 in the lease amount. We also broke out a lot of the lease payments between leases, rents, and fees. And then 2, the grants and restrictions are significantly less because instead of showing that we were going to get that full 6 million, we're just showing the amount that we're going to get in the next fiscal year, which we believe is about 2.5 million. And then, like it said in the budget message, you'll see another 2.5 and then 1 million the year after that. So that gives kind of an overview there. Salaries and wages. You can see that there were some increases in the overall, a decrease in the overall wages, but also a decrease in the number of employees. And then I'll save the rest as we kind of go through it. So if you guys want to move to page 7, this is the administration department of the budget. And differences from last year, or yeah, differences from last year. We've got 50,000 in there for miscellaneous income or miscellaneous revenue. And this revenue is really generated from the technical assistance that Genevieve's going to be providing to other organizations and helping them with grants and various other projects.
As her workload allows.
That's really important.
And line on the board.
That's right.
Sorry, which one was that again?
That was the third miscellaneous revenue, 50,000. Interest income is probably a pretty conservative estimate. You never know what interest rates are gonna be. They don't seem like they're gonna be coming down quickly, but you never really know. Again, salaries and wages, you can see the salaries and wages have gone up. Part of that is because we moved some people into the administration department. There were also a couple other positions that were removed from that as well. You can see we went from 8 employees to 6 employees.
Shouldn't that drop wages?
You would think that would drop wages, but there were a number of employees that went from not full-time to full-time. And then additionally, there were a number of employees that were under what the market value was that the court tried to move them into the correct salary range that they should be.
Are both top positions in this category, so Jeremiah and Archer.
Yes. Let's see, there's 20,000 that's in the promotions and advertising that wasn't there previously. This is for developing an advertising plan for the district or for the court. And it hasn't been something that we've done in the past. And so we think to get it started, it's going to cost a little bit of money to do so. That number may or may not decrease in the future. It depends on how it works and kind of the the direction that the commission wants to go with it.
Mhm.
IT and monitoring decreased or increased from 80,000 to 100,000. This is mainly due to some IT equipment that needs to be purchased. And so there's a slight increase there. The next one, you'll see dues and at the same time, licenses and subscriptions and fees that are down below a little bit further. Those both went from like 8,500 and 8,000 up to a little over 24,000. We moved a lot of those things that were in other departments that are like a due or a fee that's paid for the whole organization just into the administrative department to keep them all in one place and to have those together. So that's why those have increased.
Does that include, SDAO, is that a license fee that we pay for SDAO? Because I know that they're, the way that they're estimating, those is going to, result in an increase because now it's done on a percentage of your budget rather than how it was done in the past. And at our SDAO meeting, they said that that could mean a substantial jump for a number of some boards, especially since we're gonna have a big budget because we have a lot of grant funds in it. Is that good?
Yeah, so that is part of that and is included in dues.
Okay.
Did you have a question? No?
I'm sure you're gonna cover it, but significant jump in contracted services.
Yep, that was kind of the next one. So contracted services, some of the things have been brought over from other departments as well as something that you guys had a little bit this year, but it's gonna increase is a financial services contract as well as the lobbyists went from operations into the administration piece of it. And so that accounts for some of it. You'll also see that I think the communication piece of it, we left that as specifically phones and moved some of the other piece that was something that we considered contract services into that line item.
So previously our accountants, so previously our lobbyists lived in the operations side, which didn't really make sense to us as we sat as a group. And that was sort of what we did a little bit of this time. We sat down because we really want to get with the budget and try to stick with it. Like, that's something that I think that probably Diana and Donna can attest to is the budget keeps changing every single year. The format, the way it looks, the way things are categorized. We really want to get down to something that could repeat it year after year after year. Even if it's not perfect, it can just continue to be imperfect throughout all the time, and at least you have some base to work from. So there was just a lot of working through sort of definitions, which is where you saw things move sometimes where we're like, that's really a contracted service. And why has it been always showing up in repairs, right? Or in some other category. And so there was some of that moving around this year. And that was to get us all on the same page where we all speak the same language. There are times when you're splitting hairs where you're like, is that a contracted service or is that a repair? Is that a, and that's fine that we're splitting those hairs as long as we all speak the sort of same language. So some of those ones that moved over, specifically Mark Johnson, or well, Dan Marr now, it just didn't make sense from the operations side. It felt like the administrator side.
So likely this is associated with going from 3 different funds down to 1 fund a year.
That would certainly add to it, as well as we have added a accounting contract, like I said, with Marina and Co. So that's a piece that hasn't been there previously. Go ahead, Donna.
Two first comment is, one of the things I'd like to see for next year maybe is for contracted services to be broken out, so we can see. Because it's the one thing that's kind of, you don't know what it is. When you see IT, you know what that is, and when you know.
Right.
So it'd be nice to see the contracted services broke out.
I think we have a fair number of them that we can go through and speak to.
Okay.
Who do we got?
You're right, though, it seems like a big bucket.
Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah, I'd like to see it more.
It is a big bucket.
Yeah.
So you want each one by dollar amount?
Who's
No,
contracted?
just who's contracted, not dollar amount.
So for contracted services in the administration, you've got financial support, you've got copier/leases, you've got office cleaning, you've got, I always say this one, McEd, you've got your auditor, you've got engineering, lobbying, monitoring, and miscellaneous. Legal actually has its own line, but
So just out of curiosity, why is engineering in here instead of in the bridge? Fund. Oh, it's divided.
Different engineers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this would be a different engineering, so following what there's like civil engineering stuff. So we've gotten to a point now where we used to use Darren almost specifically on projects, Darren from Tennyson. If there's a project, we bring Dennis on board, but he's been with, or Darren on board, but he's been with us so long and done so many projects that now he's sort of become a vault of institutional knowledge. So when you ask about a project that happened 10 years ago, and you want to get in front of a group of people, it almost makes sense just to bring Darren in here. He's the project lead on it. He works us on everything. So we stuck a little money this year in the admin side specifically for Darren, because we're using him a little differently than we have in the past.
And then what's the financial?
That's Marine and Co. So, as part of one of the positions that, we ended was the accounting position. We went through 4 different accountants in 4 years. And instead we decided to contract that out. And that's Marine and Co. I get, how many heads do I have now looking at my books?
up to 12.
Up to 12 heads, right? So I have 12 heads that are coming for these books that have been instrumental, along with Melissa and all the hard work she's doing in getting us caught up on our audits. So for the group here that doesn't know, we were behind 3 audits. We have now finished our 1. We have 2 that we're doing concurrently at the same time, which in December of this coming year, will have us back on schedule. So it was a pretty concerted effort for us to get our books in order, get our budget in some sort of format that was continuous that we could work off of, but as well as to get those audits so we can start getting beginning balances that we can feel comfortable in and trust. Not that we don't feel comfortable and trust in these, but an audit beginning balance certainly feels much better than one that's not been. So Marine and Co has been instrumental in getting us to this point.
And the other thing is the port-funded grants that are on here that Jeremiah discussed in the budget message as well.
We'll talk just briefly about the port funding grants. So there's $260,000 in there. 110 of it is going to go to the city with the IGA for the EDA for the electrical upgrade. I put it there specifically as an example of how entities are going to need to come to the port in the future to ask for money. They're going to be able to say, hey, talk to a couple of commissioners and say, hey, we're looking for some money. And the commissioners say, hey, come to a meeting, or they call me and say, hey, would you guys be able to kick in this amount of money? What we'll do is we'll create a grant program with a certain amount of funds in it. And although the city didn't have to jump through that hoop this year, they would going forward. So that's why I stuck that in there, it'll be paid out. So there's another additional $150,000. And previously a fair amount of that has gone to the museum. It's gone to the Energy Council that Pam sits on and a few other entities. This year we've increased that. And then Genevieve and I are going to work together to create that program along with the commission to decide exactly what the process is, what paperwork you fill out, what projects qualify, what it's gonna bring to the economy. And what we certainly hope is that we get to spread some of this money throughout the community and to make it available and known that it's available throughout the community. So maybe 5,000 to a new refrigerator, 10,000 to help an art program, like whatever those entities are that want that money, that they have a process that they go through that everyone goes through. So that's.
Would request like McKed's request for their funds or for their particular funding, I guess we do this.
McKed would mostly be, McKed I think would fall more into dues. With McKed, we're part of the economic development group for Hood River, and we have a executive director that oversees that. Part of our dues go to pay that. So to be part of that group, we have.
But the Energy Council.
The energy, that's where they came and asked for
would have the
5K.
grants.
They would start at the staff level, although they could start at the commission level, but we envision that they would start at the staff level. They would come to us, we'd show them, here, this is the paperwork you need to fill out, this is when the commission's gonna need to go. They would come present to you, we would show that they had to, and then
We'd like
follow
to
up.
sync it with the planning calendar,
Mhm.
so that around this time of year, the commission has already heard reports on the success or failure of any project that was received an award in the prior year.
Mhm.
And we would also be soliciting letters of interest for organizations and businesses that intend to submit in the second round, so that this number is a little bit more informed going forward. We can tell you we've received 10 letters of interest that total $100,000, and, you know, these are the projects. The commission should be thinking about standing up a grant application evaluation committee and some scoring criteria, you know, tied to the strategic business plan goals, especially for the first year. And, you know, so we have this community benefit initiative that is, you know, credible in that there's some reporting requirements, there's some criteria that are tied to the fourth business plan. And the application process is more formalized, and the reporting process at the end is more formalized as well.
Right.
Better record these sorts of, this sort of support that goes outside of the board organization.
When I was on the Hood River Arts Council.
Yeah.
We went through a very formal grant application each year. We had, you know, we find out how much was coming to us from the state that they dispersed out into the Arts Council per county or region.
Yeah.
And they submitted, they had to, you know, talk about the parameters of their project, what they're doing, whether it was a painting project or what, how much in-kind money they had, both cash and other type of in-kind work they had. And so it was pretty extensive application. And then, as she said, we had a committee that got together, reviewed all of the proposals, and then decided how much money we were going to disperse out to each of the different grants, whether we were gonna fully award the grant application or give them a part of it and divide it evenly between either all the applicants or a handful of them, and not necessarily give a grant 100% all, but it was a very formal process, and you had to apply ahead of time. By quite a bit of time, and then we should probably do something like that. We could probably even clone the application process from maybe the Arts Council or one of those other ones that already have a formal process in place. We don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Gives the commission a great tool as well. You should be really excited about this. This is a big deal. This is a large grant opportunity as much as more than
So that, yeah, you know, the local grant makers, the Regional Destination Marketing Organization, their grant fund this year, which is funded by state lodging tax that's returned to the region. They had 78,000 to give away. The Chamber of Commerce, I think, had about 65 to give away this year. So it's a nice increase on these sort of small grant programs that go to that.
I think tying it into our
and now
into our strategic business plan and how it works in the community. The same thing with the Arts Council. It was not just about worthy projects. It was about how does this fulfill the goals of what we want to do in the Hood River area, as far as, you know, things that are going to be long lasting, have a big impact. The community may be an installment that will be there for multiple years. So we had a very specific criteria of things that we were looking for as far as, you know, how we did our scoring. So
it's a great tool for commissioners as well, because now when you guys are out in public and someone brings something to you that they're really excited about, and you guys see some passion and you go, you've got to get this in front of the commissioners. We have this great grant program that's available to you. Get in touch with Jeanette and Jeremiah, and now you have a path to sort of send them on in order to get in front of the commission that is equal and level footing for everybody.
No, I think this is a great idea. And I know I called you earlier and said, how long is this gonna take? Because I need to get out of here, but I'm gonna continue asking questions, so apologies. Could some of this also, could this potentially increase if we get grants that could technically be used by local businesses as
Yeah,
well?
on both sides of the coin, what I hope would happen is that, organizations and businesses that have an opportunity to apply for grants, but maybe the 20% local match would be a barrier to them, could apply to this money for a local match that would enable them to apply for a $100,000 grant from a state or federal agency, for example. And then there are grant opportunities that the board does not qualify for. But we could contribute to that project and maybe also provide some technical assistance along the way to help open up those funding opportunities for external organizations that are, again, aligned with your goals and strategic business.
Big fan. I'm glad it's in here. Thank you all.
well, even the downtown
Yes, exactly.
downtown program
Perfect candidate.
has a match requirement. So they could get money for the downtown revitalization program. And we could provide the match because we can't apply for it.
Right.
So
Any additional questions before we move on to operations? Okay. The next page is operations. One of the things that we did this year is we kind of dissolved the parking fund and our parking department and moved it into operations. So you can see fees of $15,000 there. That's parking fees that we believe would come in. You'll notice that wages decreased. This is part of the reason why wages and admin increased, because the operations manager is now in there. And then the maintenance, one of the maintenance worker positions got split into 4 pieces, and only a quarter of that is still included in operations. So operations manager, sorry, I said the wrong name. Okay, so then from there, some of the other things I'd bring to your attention would be the repairs and maintenance decreased significantly, as well as contracted services decreased significantly. Part of this is made up in the small tools increase. Part of it is the community services decreased, and overall, when we went back and looked at what we needed to have in the budget for this year, it was less than what it was last year. There are things that I'm not sure that we had specifically identified last year, and this year as we've gone through, we've lined out those items. They were less than what we needed, so we decreased those amounts.
I can say without a doubt that we had quite a struggle last year within our maintenance department. Our guys worked exceedingly hard on a lot of old infrastructure that they were able to update for us. Some of those were planned fixes and some of them weren't. I know going into the last budget meeting, we certainly were starting to project some higher on some things just because we've been hit so many repairs. Lots of digging trenches, lots of trying to figure out where leaks were coming from. We've had a much better year with that. We've also been a little bit more on top of it this year. So we feel very comfortable in that number and are happy to see it decrease.
Additionally, the capital outlay decreased from 275,000. We ended up getting a backhoe, which is what we have. And then this year, the 137,000 is for the irrigation pipe and the visitor center improvements.
So the 100,000 insurance, what insurance is that for?
General liability.
And all I know.
And you'll notice that's pretty much where all the general liability insurance is across the organization at this point.
That will be a difference that you'll see too. We moved general liability all into the operations, just to kind of keep an eye on that figure, keep it all in one spot, so.
All of the bridge lives in the bridge.
The bridge lives, but general liability lives.
It's a separate policy.
So for all the buildings in
That's
that
correct.
industrial park.
That's correct.
Any other questions on operations?
The contracted services, did you say who that was?
That is portable sanitation, engineering, landscaping, electrical, HVAC, plumbing, an overlay project, a little bit of miscellaneous, and then roof for house 2.
Are we setting out the landscaping?
Some of the landscaping goes out to next to the fire department out there, that piece of ground we had out there. For a number of years, we dumped wood chips and things like that, so it's created this uneven ground. It's pretty treacherous to mow. So we contract out for that particular set of mowing, but generally not most of the other we do in-house.
Okay.
Would any sort of moving part, I guess, updates like mowing there, cleaning up any down trees, all that kind of stuff? Is that just operations or is it, I mean, it's obviously operations, but
Yeah, you would see,
it's not these.
you would see contracted services, so under some of the miscellaneous stuff, if we had a tree that we needed to take down, that would go under contracted services.
Gotcha.
Our guys don't, our guys will limb, they'll prune, they'll do some minor stuff, but if it's a big tree, we contract out for
What about those barbecue pits that are in the shed?
that. We had that in-house.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
They got more.
Okay, good, good. Thank you, Todd.
The other, any other comments on that one?
I don't know if it would be in this budget or this year's budget, but, backup power, I know that there's costs that would be potentially associated with that. Is that us or is that city?
Backup power in terms of
The generator, storage.
We're hoping to get a grant for that.
Perfect. Oh, you're right.
We're working on it right now, so.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Does the grant include plan, EMR plan?
Sorry.
emergency response plans during grants.
Oh, for the work of redoing the plan, that's a good question. This grant that I'm talking about for the generator for the school, it does not include that. It's just a hard cost and labor.
No additional questions, we'll move on. The next one is.
I saw that one.
So I'm good, I don't mind questions, so. You can see the next page is just one that Oregon law requires that you keep everything on your budget until it automatically falls off. So there's no activity in the past 2 years on the next one.
What is NPRA?
So,
Parking recreation.
yeah, at one point in time, previous executive directors attempted to separate out things that were happening specifically in Marine Park. We had sort of it was sort of difficult to understand how much money it actually took to operate Marine Park. And so in order to sort of wrap our brains around that and present it to the commission, she separated it out. It worked, but it didn't work with this format. So, and I don't know if it didn't work for the format or as well, it just didn't work the way our accounting reported, to be honest. But we stopped doing it last year. We're gonna continue not to do it this year, one more year, and then it falls away and this page won't exist.
But we'll still have it.
But we'll still have.
So we're continuing not to do it.
Correct. We're continuing not to do it. That's right.
Okay, so toll bridges, we decided to do a conservative estimate on the bridge tolls. We should hit that number, but again, a conservative estimate helps us make sure that we're gonna get to where we need to be.
I think I'll stop on this one real quick, only because I lived and died that bridge for a couple of years. The 3.25 that you see as an estimate for this year, we're gonna come in ahead of that. We get a tremendous amount of our traffic right at the end of our fiscal year, so it makes it difficult to predict your ending amount. But the way that Matt did the math on it came out at 3.2. We'll be higher than that. I would like to finish over budget next year, which is why I did the 3.2 this year. We really, if we can ever get through a year without a weather event, which does happen, I promise you, I've looked at historical data, every 2 years we do it. But when I originally forecast this 3.3 and 23, 24, I failed to throw in 4 or 5 days where the bridge just doesn't get in traffic because of a weather incident. So every year a weather incident happens and I go, there goes my budget. And it's not by much, but it's disappointing to miss it. And so this year I thought it'd be fun to come in over budget. It won't be much, maybe $100,000, but it'll be waiting there for us at the next budget and we'll spend it then.
What about the river bridge? Like, I would imagine that would give us some sort of benefit.
In terms of the weight limits that they have right now, or the weight limits right now, they don't enforce those, right? So it's sort of a Scouts honor type of thing. We will get some traffic from it, not a lot, not enough. If the Hood River Bridge has to shut down for a 24 to 48 hour period before we really start seeing people making that decision, whether they go to Biggs Junction or they come here.
Right.
A Highway 14 closure, absolutely, right? So there are some weather events that actually kick in our favor as well, so.
Yeah.
You see the wages actually decreased, but benefits went up. That's due to some turnover at the toll takers. Insurance, we signed a 2-year agreement last year, and so while it's down from last year's budget, it's based off the 2-year agreement that we have, so we should be good there. We've moved into the IT monitoring line item, the software that is used up at the toll station. And so previously that was recorded down in licenses and subscriptions. The repair and maintenance kind of moved down into contract services because that's where a lot of that work was actually done. It was contracted out. Additionally, you've got the bridge engineer there, welding, flagging. One of the things that's in here that was not in there last year was the Port of Hood River breeze by payments that we have to make. Every time somebody uses it, we have to pay 13 cents.
To the Port of Hood River, Port of Hood River manages that for us. So they do all the back end work on it and we give them a percentage of it. That's existed since the program has existed. It continues to go that direction. But yes, we send Port of Hood River payment every month, right?
Yep. Pretty significant amount. So
And that's where there's cash or card, just card, right?
Breeze by.
so that's the sensor.
Hood River owns the Breeze by software system. They developed it, created it, implemented it, and then we followed shortly after.
Forgive me, I don't remember, when is the Hood River going off tolls?
That's,
30.
is that it? 23?
No, sorry, 2026.
They're going off
26.
tolls?
June 30, 2026.
So they will, so that bridge along with, similar to our bridge, thank you, will never go off tolls. It will continue to be tolled, but all money from the toll will go to the Bi-State Bridge Committee, which will now oversee that for the creation of a new bridge. So it's sort of similar. Restricted bridges.
Not paid over to the.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They're still gonna
It's just-
spend some bridges. Okay, cool.
Yeah, what goes to the bridge authority is all of the most recent increase.
Oh, right.
So
The 50
both on the
cents.
cash, the 50 cents exactly on the cash and on the breeze by side. So that's what goes to the bridge committee. The Port of Hood River Commission wants to not use their portion of the total on anything but bridge related expenses, be that maintenance, repair, or replacement. And so all of the subsidies for parks and buildings in the airport and the marina, all of the business plans in those different areas are having to bring their operations to self-sustaining without a toll subsidy by 2026.
My concern was, are they still going to use breeze by? Is there?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So the port has a 15-year bridge maintenance plan. Was it taken into consideration for these contracted services?
It was,
Should be doing done.
it was to some degree. We're going to see where the $2.5 million that we spend on the studies that we got from the legislative appropriation to really take another look at that 15-year plan. Although it was written with the best intent, a number of those projects never received funding, and so we're sort of behind on that 15-year plan. There's some projects that should have already been completed, and some I should have far more money in the bank for than I do. And so I want to sit down with David McCurry, who is our bridge engineer, relook at the 15-year plan with the information that we garner from some of these studies, and come up with something that is more in line with what the board is capable of doing. Versus if we can just find this funding. That bridge has been very difficult to find funding for up until now, and it suffered from not going through a few of those projects. So to continue on the same 15-year plan is somewhat ignoring the 3 and 4 and 5 years where we didn't do some of the things we were supposed to. So we will see a new 15-year plan come out. This commission will probably start looking at and improving that maybe even before the end of the fiscal year, but we don't expect a lot of spending on the bridge until we get some of those studies back that really tell us the priorities of this bridge, where it stands for where it stands for the replacement.
Well, there were previous studies that set that up from the beginning.
There were some previous,
There was also money that was regularly set aside in the budget
and it's still
to
there.
do those projects.
It's still there. That money's still there, but the amount of money that was being set aside and the amount that the projects actually need to be funded, there's a big gap. It's a large delta. We were looking at doing partial bridge painting on that And it's a $6 to $7 million project, $30 million to paint the whole thing, and that was in line to start potentially last year.
That 6 million feasibility study can go a long ways towards paying part of the bridge.
Agreed. I certainly wish it said studies and painting, but that was hard to ask, that was hard to get.
We could pay 1/5 of the bridge with that.
Donna, I couldn't agree with you more, how painful it was to get $6 million for studies, knowing that there's probably $6 million of work I could do right now. We do have a long-term plan. We are gonna be asking the state of Washington for more money. We're working on it. It's a tough one.
Any additional questions on the bridge project? Moving on for the commercial properties. You can see the lease revenue is decreased. That's because we have not included any revenue from Flex 6 as it's currently vacant. Figured we'll keep it that way, make sure we can manage our budget without it, and hopefully someone leases it and we get more revenue than what we're projecting. Additionally, we've got some fees of $52,919. That's actually property taxes that are paid by tenants. And so we're recognizing that as revenues because we should also be recognizing it as an expense. So you see that down below as an expense.
So that was something that Marina & Co. came to us with and said, your property taxes, you guys get the bills for that? We're like, yes, we do. You're like, send it to the tenants. We're like, yes, you do. We divide it amongst the buildings that are split because the county won't do that. County won't take a single building and split it. So we split it in-house, send them each a bill and then wait to get paid back on that. And if we don't recognize that as us getting the bill, then getting paid, we're doing it incorrectly. So that's why you've seen we've never done it before this way and we're not doing it that way.
Where does it show the revenue in that? Coming in, all right.
It's just there at the top, 52,000.
Oh, okay, that's what the fees are.
Yep.
And it's in the
So
taxes
coming
below.
out, tenants.
We chose to leave it as the word fees and not taxes, so it's not to be sort of confusing because it looks like we're collecting taxes if it's up there and, okay, perfect.
This is where another quarter of that maintenance employee lives, so that's where there's an increase in salaries. The insurance got included in operations, that's why that's 0. Repairs and maintenance decreased because it ended down in contracted services. And everything else besides the property tax amount that we already talked about is pretty much similar.
We had a number of things that we went into repairs that now go down to contracted services. When big buildings break, it requires a different set of skill sets than what our own maintenance team has. They will make every attempt to tackle it, but as soon as we hit HVAC, that's gonna take somebody else. Anything that takes us to go way up into those rafters, our guys are not gonna go up there and do that. It's just not what they do. So especially Flex 5 and Flex 6, it almost always requires a special set of hands to come in and do that.
So they have to rent the lift,
The lifts,
that comes in there.
that's right. The drop for some of the stuff that we do outside, that's right.
No additional questions?
Campgrounds?
Campgrounds.
A little campground that could.
So campgrounds, you'll notice there is rent and there are fees. The rent is what the camp host will be paying. The attorney this year said it's best that we break out their, well, I guess it's best for them to pay rent.
So previously our camp hosts had received the space for free. And then they received they have our contracted service and we paid them to manage the campground. Attorney said this year, it would really be better if you charge that, if you charge them for that space rent and then it just increase the amount that you pay them. That's more in line with accounting practices and as well protects us more legally. So we've increased the amount that we pay the camp host exactly the amount that we're going to charge her to have space there in the campground.
And is that in contracted services?
It's correct.
Yeah, so that's what increased contracted services. Additionally, the IT monitoring, that's what it costs for us to have Flybook, which is the online reservation system.
Does she have to pay taxes on this increase? If it's increased in her salary, she has to pay taxes on that, right? So she would have to actually pay state and federal taxes.
Which,
So they actually get less.
it was actually taxable income before.
Yeah.
You know,
Taxes on it before.
You know what I'm saying, is that we increased her salary to cover what we're charging her, she's
Right.
actually paying a delta. because
She
she's
gets
taxed.
99.
Making 30% less because, any taxes on, taxed on that much. Right. She was paying already.
Yeah, it doesn't make a fair deal for her.
She wasn't paying that.
I would say that, I
So
would
the
say
rate
that
should have been previously.
That's
If
what
you're
he
looking
said.
at it tax wise.
So we haven't, finalized her contract yet, it's still with Tommy. I would say that we increase the fees there plus 30%. That gives me room within our negotiations if she brings that up and says, hey, I'm gonna get taxed. That I have that there, if I don't need it, I won't use it, but it's a good point that I don't think that we considered in our negotiations, me nor her. So if we were to increase that by 30% of the rents, that would cover us for that. And that could be,
Well, that should be there.
it might be the tax bracket, all those things, but also I don't wanna come back to it. I don't wanna not have it there, because it's a fair point, and one that if she brings up, I'm gonna have to speak to it.
Knowing Laurel, she'll think of
And
that.
she may.
Well, we're doing it for our budget, but I mean, obviously she has our budget, so I don't. Screw her.
So we can increase that. If that's something, I mean, that's up to you guys, if you would like to make that change, that's something that we can do.
Well, I assume she's always been paying taxes on that amount.
On her own personal
Yeah.
income, for sure.
On her own
Whatever the
income.
court paid her.
On what we
She gets it
paid
to
her,
them,
yes,
yes.
But not on her free,
but not probably not on.
Nobody says, hey, let me pay for
Now
the
she's
free
paying.
place and stay.
But now she's actually paying out for it, so.
I did once. Just kidding.
We can leave
But
it
if
as
they
it is.
pay, when they're charging, you know, we're gonna do the same for that.
I understand.
We can leave it as it is, or you can give me a little room to negotiate in that conversation when she brings it up, and I just didn't feel about it, so.
So what do you want
I think you said 30%
over what?
over the 18,615.
But that would just be for negotiation.
Yeah, just so that I have the room in there, so when she says, wait a minute, I didn't think about this, when we pay tax on that, I go, yeah, I didn't think about it either, my budget committee did, and guess what, we're good.
Where are you gonna take that out of?
I wouldn't necessarily, it would come out of the unappropriated fund. Yeah.
Perfect.
And any changes that we make, you guys have the ability to approve this budget tonight with those changes in there. And we don't have to go back, change it, bring it back to you, show you I did it, and then do this all over again. So don't be afraid if we see some stuff to say, hey, let's make that one tweak. So I think it's a good week. Thank you for bringing that up, Albert, and Brian mentioned to me as well.
If you're humanitarian, somebody should have him as a commissioner.
Any additional questions on?
We say congratulations and condolences.
What are the taxes? So that's the taxes that are paid for the state and city. Transportation taxes.
For tourism, okay.
Yep. Moving on to Marina, we left rents the same on the budget because the increase is still the same on your slips. Wages, again, we've got a quarter of the maintenance worker there. And then you had contracted services that decreased significantly. Last year, we had dredging in the budget. In our discussions to get permits and get to the point where it's time to dredge, it's gonna be more than a year out. And so there wouldn't be anything in this year's budget to do that.
We have this really scientific method in which we figure out which we need to dredge. Todd puts on a wetsuit, and jumps in there and feels around the bottom, and no, the boats are gonna hit, and so Todd jumps in the water, and he's done this for a number of years, he's the one that says, hey, yeah, we gotta dredge this thing, like it's getting bad.
I thought you were kidding.
No, I'm serious. I mean, it's such a small dredging project, it's, as far as dredging projects go, it's a $20,000 to $30,000 project, it's tiny. There's a very bad spot, right, where you come into it, it's the part that we're most concerned about. And you can tell right away, Todd goes out there right away, be like, yep, this is getting bad, we need to get it done. He went out there, we don't see it this year. I will highlight that, we probably, this commission's gonna need to, along with all our fees, we're gonna need to look at what we do with our, fees there at the,
What is the last time we raised Marina?
it's been a long time. It's been a long time.
I remember we talked about this last year.
Yeah, I just wasn't able to get it in front of the commission, in order to, I don't love the idea of bringing you a budget and then being like, hey, we should just raise the fees, right? Because it doesn't pencil out, right? So I would have liked to have had it in before you raise the fees and then been able to show you, hey, I'm projecting more revenue this year.
Right.
But we'll tackle it. We'll either tackle it next year when we come back to camping, when we come back to bridge tolls. You guys are gonna look at bridge tolls next year. It doesn't mean you have to raise them, but I want you guys to look at things every year and say, nope, we're not doing it, right? So to look at everything every year and then make your decisions, we'll probably do that all at the same time in the same meeting. So it's a possibility that Marina won't make it until we do all of them at the same time. But we also get tackled sooner if it's something the commission wants to do. But we'd like to get on the schedule where every year you guys look at your fees and go, not this year, no increase. Yep, not this year, no increase. This year we're gonna.
So is it realistic to think that there's a border time employee for the marina?
Yeah, so it's really difficult and it's something that is on my list to tackle. So I don't have a way right now to really track my employees in a way that I can substantiate where they spend the most of their time. At one time, the previous gym was trying to tackle that, and it's tough, it's really tough. There's some better software out there now to potentially do that. It can be left up to the employee to just punch in their phone, hey, this is what I'm working on. That's what we have to do on the administrative side for sure. We definitely have to be like, and now I'm working on this. There are some things that we could probably implement with our maintenance folks who are all over, right? Clear up to the parking lot up on Bridge of the Gods, on the bridge itself, out of the maintenance department, in the marina, in the campground, with QR codes that could just scan so we know where they're at, as well as if we just did a tracking system where we made little geo fences. Right now I have a maintenance department that would not love the idea of being in a geo fence. And so I think maybe in the future, that's something that we could do, but it's something I'm trying to figure out is how do I get a better grasp of exactly how much time we spend in the marina? I would say a quarter is too much, but I split it across.
Cams probably would go.
Yeah. We don't spend a lot of time in the marina. We don't spend a lot of time in the marina until we do. Like usually it's just kind of a set it and forget it, but then we get a huge ice storm that'll leave this much ice on all the docks and people won't go get in their boats and power goes out. And so when the marina needs attention, it needs a lot of attention, but it's not very often occurring.
And having time like that is a huge pain. You're good at my job because we have to target to the different customers, so.
From an administrative side, it's a little bit easier because we look at numbers all day and we punch on a computer all day and just hit one more key. But to train my maintenance department to be in the middle of a project and then to get a call from Alfonso who says, hey, I'm out of gas, can you bring some gas? Can I run the gas down there while we're there? He'd ask me about this trench. And so it's hard for them. They just don't think in those sort of, like, they don't see this kind of stuff. And so it just doesn't translate as well for them. So what I get a lot of at the end of the week was sort of like, I don't know, I spent 8 hours at the business park, 2 hours administrative. So we're working to bring ourselves sort of into the future, which is something this commission has asked for, is how do we take some of the things now that you're seeing in the everyday business world and make it part of the report? That would be one of them, but it's something we're gonna have to get to.
I'm gonna make a suggestion to take a super quick break and Janetta made these lovely trays over here. If somebody wants to grab something to drink and snack if you want. I throw it out there. I saw Janetta at the market at 5 o'clock. She put all that together in an hour, so.
If anybody's hungry at any point in time,
Hungry,
yeah, feel free to grab something.
We have to thank her.
Yeah.
Do you have water, Rita? We
Yeah,
got,
yeah.
our water, the
So, we'll just take a quick minute and grab something if you like.
restroom. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead. Hey, Brad, can you put us on a break?
Yes, we'll go on break here, give us about 10 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm confused, Brad, can you put us, thank you. Yeah, just for the record and so.
We're gonna take a quick break.
There you go.
Thank you, Melissa.
Well,
Are we ready?
are we ready? Everyone to review, when we talk about it.
We're not reviewing the meeting.
Yeah, we can go, probably go ahead and start. You all ready?
That's what I was saying, I'm president back off.
Pardon?
That's what I was saying.
Guys, sit back, relax. You're already making motions and everything.
One, two.
We're resuming the meeting.
All right, we'll move on to Stern Wheeler if there are no additional questions. So Jetty Light is the contract that we have that operates the Stern Wheeler, and our contract with them would give us up to $100,000 this year, which they assured us we would get, so. That's what is in the revenue line item. Additionally, we've put 10,000 in contracted services just in case something happens that we might need to spend that money on. Dry dock.
I have a contractor that I use named Mark Troutman. He's participated a lot in the rebuild. He is basically my go-to consultant for anything that has to do with the stern wheeler. So if I get a call from Jetty Light and they say, hey, the Canudi valve broke, we gotta have one of those, I get to call Mark Troutman and say, do we really need a Canudi valve? Right, so I gotta have somebody that's representing the port's best interest on any of those things. And as much as I would love to be a stern wheeler expert, Mark Troutman is my go-to. I don't specifically know what I'll use that $10,000 for, but I need to have it there in case Jetty Light comes to me and hits me with some high technical boat knowledge that I just don't have.
So do they cover repairs or both cover repairs?
There's a repair fund that set aside, and we don't start putting into it for, I think it's
Till 2026.
2026. They do, we don't.
So they put money into the.
Correct. But if anybody has an opportunity to hop on the boat on Friday and take your free ride, it looks so good. It's a brand new boat almost. We toured it yesterday. It was still a mess because they've been working so hard on it, but every single surface in there feels like it's new. So,
Is that this Friday?
yes,
Oh.
first cruises are Friday.
So it's a-
So show up, show your ID, you get
Yeah.
the ride for free. Maybe we'll, and eventually we'll.
Storm the stern wheeler.
I love the story. They didn't like us doing it on Fridays because they're ready to go home instead. They were like, you need to do it on Fridays. But yeah, Storm the Stern would be great.
I need to come up with a different name after January.
Plain Wow. There's the advertising guy. They're all good ideas. They're all good ideas. So no Storm the Stern. Wow, well done.
So how is the revenue capital?
So in our contract, we make $100,000 for every million that they make, and that comes from their gross. And so and that's for the first 3 years. For the first 3 years, we will not take in more than $100,000. It's capped at 100 grand, with the intention for them to get 3 years under their belt, getting their back of the running to reinvest in things like advertising, training people. We lost some institutional knowledge and we lost all the AWI crew. So the goal is for them to get this business and continue to keep it running. In the 4th, 5th, and 6th years, for every million when it goes to $2 million in revenue, we get $200,000. When the Stern Wheeler left, when I left, they were doing about $3 million a year in business, and the Corp was bringing in about 80,000. We'll be bringing in about 300. So it takes us a while to get to the level where we're going. It's pretty slick. But we have no doubt that Jetty Light will get it back to $3 million, but we will cap out at around 300,000. More than 3 times what we were making with AWI.
And then the capital outlay is for.
Capital outlays, so the visitor center and their offices, I have some work that I need to do, really focus it on, things that are attached to the stern wheeler. But a part of that deal is I need to split the electrical that's in there. We have 2 people that are taking advantage of it. There's also some water issues that we need to split. So it's just really getting the visitor center set up to be 2 entities instead of 1. It was previously AWI that ran the cafe and the boat, and now we're gonna have next stop a restaurant, and then Jetty Light doing the boat. So that building's gonna need some work.
Okay, and you're not showing, are you showing any revenue from the restaurant?
I'm not showing any revenue for the restaurant.
They're not paying
Are we
rent.
showing revenue in commercial buildings already?
I
Did we
didn't
put,
see it in
you
there.
have that
We put them
document?
in the commercial property.
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's in commercial properties, thank you.
So is the restaurant's not open yet, though, right?
May 15th.
May 15th?
We've still got a few hurdles that we need to get through. I'm hoping not to have to push that back. We found out that our design is too big. The design that Exapa has is too big for city codes. So we're gonna have to take that to the planning commission. That will delay things. So sooner or later, we will be sitting by the river enjoying our margaritas, but there may be a sign that you think is too big.
Can we get an operations manager to get down there and just grab the signs?
Say that again. It's a solid.
City, and because I mentioned that, I also want to mention that me and Jordan have a lot of really good conversations where we run into sort of these things. And it's a hoop that exists that has to be jumped through, but at the end of that conversation, we start having discussions about how do you not have to jump through this again? How can the port be recognized as a special land down there, right? It's right now, it's set, it's zoned for public use. That really means I can run a school or some other public service. A lot of things have been grandfathered in, but we're required to jump through a lot of the same hoops that anybody who would roll through town in, which we do a lot of economic development work with the city. And so for us, every time to have to go to their planning commission and jump through all those hoops, it's a little lackluster, especially when the leadership is all sort of on the same page for things. So although the sign is too big, it's a hoop we have to jump through. We're making plans to get it so we don't have to jump through some of those.
There's nothing to do with the budget, we can talk about.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The city sign code, I've known ever since I've been here, it has some real problems because it's based on the square footage of your building. The amount of sign area you can have is based on the size of your square footage of your building. Like, how does that make sense? You know, but anyway, it's more of a problem with the sign code, that they've adopted rather than anything that makes any kind of sense. But that's,
Any additional questions on this turnaround? Okay, moving on to events. We see event revenues increased, we split out some of the fees for some of the vendors that would come in with events. Additionally, I believe the prior name was the event coordinator is now the event manager, and there's a seasonal employee that's included as well in the budget.
So we've always previously leaned on maintenance in order to set up for weddings. Parker's gone through that, Todd's gone through that, John's gone through that, Alfonso's gone through it. So along with all their regular duties every summer, we're like, oh, by the way, we need 150 chairs set up on the island. And 4 hours later, we need you to take them down. And so that sort of duty sort of rolled through the maintenance department, and it's a bit of a struggle, right? And it was also not exciting for maintenance. You have an events department. It's like, look, I just sold this deal, and maintenance being like, great, you just created more work for us, right? And so we wound up taking one maintenance employee most of the time and putting them with events. Now we're memorializing that we've done it and actually reflecting in the budget, and now reflecting the second employee that now reports directly to the events manager, which is really in practice kind of how it was being done, but now is officially the way it's being done. Right.
But are you saying there's 1.5 people under the event?
That's correct. There's 1.5 people under events, a seasonal. So there's a year-round events manager and then a seasonal in the summer to help set down and take down weddings, clean up after they leave, put the chairs away, take the chairs out, all that sort of stuff. Janetta will still sort of oversee as an events manager because she's present at every single event, even though Jenny's tried to get her some time off. And you can speak to it.
Well, there were a couple of what I think of as corrections to that job description where we're moving from a sales and marketing position to, since we're not replacing the special projects manager, port produced events now move under this position as well. So 4th of July, Christmas light, festival, and then the direct supervision of the seasonal employee. So that changes that job a bit, so.
So Jeanetta's still full-time.
Jeanetta's a full-time, and it's moving from basically sales and marketing and event coordination into actually managing the events department. So that some of her updated job description includes soliciting sponsorships for community events and actually managing those community events. And as well as her current duties of sales and marketing for private rentals and events.
So is she still represented on this page?
Yes,
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 okay,
yes.
that's what I was trying to figure out, okay.
If the events are on this, where is Fourth of July and where is Christmas?
Or those are going to be import sponsor events.
Okay.
And so that's a new category for us. It's an event that the port is.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on events, or there aren't a lot of other significant changes?
So we're not showing like any part of the pavilion in here or
Correct,
maintenance on the wedding side?
correct.
That's not under.
Correct.
events.
There, which is an interesting point, and something that we wrestled with as a group. At what point in time do you say that an event is a way that Marine Park actually makes money? And it could be viewed as that, right? You take Marine Park and say, man, this thing just eats money, it doesn't make any. And then you go, well, it makes parking, right? And parking was its own sort of department for a while. We stuck that into operations and said, all right, this is how the park makes money. There is an argument to say that that park makes money by also sponsoring events. That means that I have to either roll it into operations, and now I have to figure out how much the fertilizer was actually keeping it green for a wedding, or keeping it green for being used at the park, or keeping it green because that's what you, so it's tough, and we struggle with that a little bit. There's a part of me that was like, stick it all in the park, because the park can do that, but if you don't split it out a little bit, you start to lose some visibility. If you'd have been in the room, you probably could have argued with me that maybe it should be, but I lost the argument, so it remains its own.
And there's a few things on the capital outlay for events that are definitely envisioned, but have not received any sort of feedback from the commission yet. And so as we're going through the strategic business planning process, they'll hear those proposals as we go forward in year one and tell us if that's a priority or not. And we'll be able to provide them kind of a pro forma if we have these certain projects for capital outlay, but right now they're in that, you know, what is it called, unallocated funds, or, you know, and they're in that nebulous dollar amount that is not assigned to anything, because we just don't have sufficient commission input yet to put a line item there.
Do you have it on your list to pave that road on the other side of the pavilion? Coming in the back side of the pavilion?
Not,
I don't think so.
not anytime soon. I don't. This is my budget. It has my signature on it. I'm taking a very much a back seat to the events department. That is an employee that reports directly to Genevieve. And so she's gonna take a sort of a big sort of leadership role in anything that happens in events. So I will direct that question to Genevieve, and I would say
That's
probably,
not on the
probably.
list.
not.
That's not on the list right now.
You're down there at Easter and it's all mud.
Yeah, what's on Janetta's wish list right now are door replacements at the pavilion. Some enhancements to the Fern Gully, which is actually kind of an efficiency seeking measure, so that we're not moving 200 chairs twice a day, you know? And possibly construction of another facility on the north end of the east end of Thunder Island, but it's not in any developed budget, you know, we can't present it as a proposal just yet or a performance.
Hearing no other questions, moving on to parking, which we already told you is moving into operations, so that's just an empty page. Right here. And then we move to port sponsored events. So this is where we've got some fees for vendors for the 4th of July. And then donations for the 4th of July fireworks. And then, go ahead.
Yeah, just for this commission, the way the fireworks work is the port pays for it, and we solicit donations in order to try to recoup our money. The port, the city usually makes a pretty good investment in that. I think it's really around $5,000. Then we put buckets up around town. We take donations up at the bridge, and then we also reach out to local businesses. Genevieve actually has a whole set of different businesses that she said we should have been reaching out to for years, so we're excited about that. The credit card fees that you'll see on there are attributed to the fact that we had run credit cards for the vendors that will be at things like the 4th of July event. This mostly encompasses the 4th of July event. We've also just recently started the Bridge of the Cod Centennial, and they have their own subcommittee, so that will be a court-sponsored event as well. So where you see in contracted services for $25,000, $15,000 of that is going to be the fireworks. The fireworks materials, yeah, 25,000 of that, 15 of that will be for the fireworks themselves, so we bought them. The other 10,000 will go to the budget of the Bridge Centennial. So they will have some money to start working with and figuring out a plan for what happens in 2 years. You also see on their community services for $2,500. That is a line item that's going to go away in the future. I'm leaving it for 1 more year for people to get through the idea that you can't just come to the court and be like, hey, I need $300 to fill up the Easter eggs with chocolates. Actually, there's a process for that. You have to fill out the grant fund, and it's cool and it's small and short, and people help you, and then you'll come in front of you and we can get you some money. But I'm leaving 1 more year for people to get accustomed to me saying, hey, next year, this isn't gonna work. And this is how it's gonna be done. So that's probably Easter, it's probably the community picnic. It's some of the things that we've allocated money in a certain way that isn't gonna happen anymore, but I wanted to leave it there 1 more time, not to, just to get people accustomed to that idea.
What about Christmas?
Christmas lights in what way? So Christmas lights with, so yeah, so right now, we don't have an event that we do for Christmas, all we do is put the Christmas lights up. That would fall underneath our operations side, where it's just maintenance goes in there, plugs them in, puts them in. We don't have any event that we did last year, and don't envision doing another event this year. The commission has directed us to look at a larger event down in Marine Park. That would be a lighting event that maybe you would drive through, or in the shoulder season to try to create tourism. I have a consultant that's going to come out and take a look at the park. They do it for the city of Hillsborough. They set them up, take them down, and they store them, which is all the 3 things that we need. If that is something that the commission is interested in moving forward with, it will have that $2.4 million that they could look at as one of the things that they would want to do in their strategic business plan. So
along the lights.
it's, well, you don't. You got me. So if that's something that the commission decides to move forward with, I don't have it budgeted. It's something that would come out of that development fund that you guys have to work with.
What do we normally do for stolen or broken?
In what? In terms of like replacing them?
Uh,
So in previous years, we've set aside money for additional pieces. Melissa actually typically is the one who does those, buys those. So usually there is some money in there for additional lights. I didn't include any this year for additional lights. We made a couple big purchases recently. We didn't lose any, we lost 1 last year. We lose 1 part, didn't lose any. I don't think we lost any. So I didn't put anything in the budget to buy an additional one. How much are they?
$300 to $1,500. But, so we got $20,000 from SDAO when the warehouse burned down and all the Christmas was in the warehouse. And that wasn't specifically in our policy, but they did give us $20,000, and which I spent and bought everything. And then we had a lot of damage 2 or 3 years ago, where they stole all the 100-yard extension cords, very expensive. They ruined things. Somebody stole and kidnapped the unicorn. We don't know where she is. We had to buy another one because everybody loves the unicorn. So that's why everything is moved more closer to the road this last year, is because of the theft and the damage. But again, SDA gave us between $7,000 and $9,000 again for the stealing and the damage.
Okay. So
And we got 9 new pieces with that I bought. But sometimes years ago, we would put like $3,000 in the budget for Christmas. That would be for if we need more extension cords, because we seem to buy them a lot every year, and then we have them and then they disappear and get used, I don't know where else. And maybe 1 new piece, and then I thought it was fun to, in our newsletter, to put down, there's a new piece. The year that there was 2 years ago when there was 9 new pieces, go see what new pieces you can find.
If we install across the bridge, would they go all the way across the bridge?
We used to do the rope lights halfway across the bridge, and we had a lot of rope lights because I bought them.
So
And we don't even use them, they're in the basement.
I think what's up for debate here is whether or not that's a port sponsored event or whether that's just the port decorating. If we just call it the port decorating, then it probably belongs in operations. And I will tell you, I did not put any money in there to get additional lights this year. If you're like, hey, you should have some additional lights, we would need to go back to the operations budget and add that. Or the case could be made that is a port sponsored event, and then you would begin to see at least some supplies being listed here. That would most likely be new extension cords and new Christmas lights. It just kind of depends how you view it. It's one of those things where you're splitting hairs a little bit. It could be an operational side where you're just decorating from up, but if you call it an event, it could in theory be a port sponsored event. Again, we don't have to agree on everything. We just all have to speak the same language. So it doesn't necessarily matter where it goes, but I see your point as to why it could be in there.
My suggestion is let's get Flex 6 leased out and then
There you
we'll
go.
treat ourselves with a bunch of new Christmas lights.
Yeah.
And
And
I
then
give
it'll be
you
miscellaneous money too.
creating-
in it.
Okay, so
Yeah, I like that.
if we moved into a full lighting event down in the park, that would absolutely end up here as a port sponsored event, without a doubt. Or potentially could end up in events. She would love to hear that. Again, you're splitting hairs a little bit, but as long as it's somewhere that we all say the same thing every year and we know. But yeah, I can see how you could think it would end up here, but it didn't.
In the park, it's gonna have to be security too.
So would the park lights be an additional to the ones that are up at the toll bridge, or are you talking about moving that to the?
I think we tested out moving the lights away from the toll bridge and it didn't land well with the community. So I think we would leave them there, which I think is great because it allows visitors to see it. And anything else we did would be moved down
It
in the
would
park.
be an addition, okay.
So we'll put in a pin in it.
Putting a pin in currently, I would say that it lives in operations and that's how this group of people will continue to speak about it. If you guys think it belongs here, we could make that change.
But there's no budget.
There's no budget
for
this year,
it
so
this year.
what you would have would be supplies and it would say $0.
Right.
It's just not reflected here.
I think we need to hear what the contractor has to say about
Yeah.
what it would take to light up Million Park before we allocate money.
We do have miscellaneous.
We do have
As a commission, we can just decide to use
If
funds.
we have
In the
miscellaneous.
future, we don't necessarily.
And if I don't spend all $10,000 for the centennial budget, there might be some left over.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay,
So.
That's right.
I just don't want to be a Grinch.
Yeah, no,
Or something that like last year we read in December and be like, oh my God, we need to do something. We're too late. This is when we need to start thinking about
You
it.
gotta order early,
Right. So this is when we need to start thinking about things like that.
yeah, cause everything they sell out. If you go to christmasdonebright.com,
Next week.
you can just see all of them, they're great.
I wanna be part of that, I wanna see what he says.
Sure. I think he's gonna walk around and mostly talk about infrastructure challenges, where we have plugs, where we don't have plugs, which trees are lightable in a really grandiose way, which ones we just wanna do the bottoms of because they're too big, how traffic can potentially move through it, and 'cause what he does, so.
Any other questions on port sponsored events? We move down into development. There's a lot of changes from last year, but that's just how it is. You'll notice that we already received the funds for the legislative appropriation, so the lottery funds. So you don't see that as a resource on the top, but you can see that the ability to spend it is down at the bottom. You've got the 2.4 million. Additionally, there's a few state grants. One is the feasibility study. Another one is for 30,000.
Should we go through those?
That would be great.
Okay, you got the notes. Do you want me to just start with ARPA and go down that block?
Sure.
There, okay. So the ARPA grant, just a note about this one, we expect the remaining, I think we're at about $485,000 remaining in that grant that will be spent before June 30. If we need an extension on that grant, we have been told by the grant manager that that is possible. But right now we have pretty high confidence that that grant will be finished up by the end of this fiscal year and not carried forward. But if we do need an extension, we can get one through December of 2024. But I don't think that we'll need it. The state grants that are listed there include 2 Oregon Emergency Management Department grant applications that we're working on right now that wouldn't be awarded until the next fiscal year. And also included in that is a Port Planning and Marketing Fund grant, which I think we mentioned earlier, for a feasibility study that would be that would be studying a priority in year 1 of the new strategic business plan action plan. And I think this would also maybe include the OSMB grants. Yeah.
6,000.
So OSMB maintenance assistance grants are awarded biennially every other year. And so you apply for a $12,000 grant, you get 6 one year and 6 the next year. And that is for the boat launch area maintenance. Matt already talked about the lottery funds. The
Question about lottery funds real quick, sorry. Does lottery funds mean that it's funded by the lottery, or is it just distributed as a lottery to different entities? That's a good question.
It's funded by the lottery.
Okay, I was curious.
The Bridge of the Gods Trailhead Grant, that is for the purchase of the restroom facility that will be installed. We're going to order and pay for the facility in this fiscal year, but the delivery and installation will be happening in October. And so there's utility hookup costs that will happen.
Brian, you asked me earlier when you met, you were like, what is that 76? Is what we bought it in this fiscal year, but the actual installation with the electrical and water is, so that was at 76 we were talking about yesterday.
Yep.
So we'll have utility hookup costs, and the delivery costs were just an estimate, so there's a contingency for delivery being more than what was quoted to us. The next grant below that has been awarded, and that was a $19,000 grant from Experience Mount Hood, and that will split the local match requirement of that restroom facility. So we had a $40,000 local match requirement. They're gonna put $19,000 of that. We have already, what they do is a 50 and 50, so they award you 50% of your grant, which is in this fiscal year at the beginning of the project, and then the other 50 at project completion. The Cascade Locks Trail System Grant, that's the Recreational Trails Program grant. That one had significant project delays, and we are going to be asking for an extension. That grant contract right now expires in June 30. The volunteer side is it's a 6-mile loop trail. The volunteer side of it has completed 3 miles. The pro side, the team that's working on the pro side of another 3 miles are currently doing a trail at the Coyote Wall. And they won't be done there they won't start on our project until June. So we're gonna be, OPRD has asked us to not request our extension until May, but they've already told us we're gonna get the extension. So it will go into the next fiscal year portion of that project. It's, I think $190,000 project, but most of the funds are not gonna be expended until next year. And then the Bridge Strengthening Project grant, that's the $6 million that was allocated in the omnibus bill. I have a hard time saying that word, in this past short session. That, however, is a reimbursement grant, so we won't be getting the money until we're spending the money. So it's not like ARPA, which prepaid 1.3 million, and that sat in our bank account and we just expended it and reported on those expenditures. This money we will be expending and getting a reimbursement, and it's, so we don't expect to expend more than 2.5 million in the first year, so that's why that's the resource there. I think that's everything. Did I forget anyone?
Yeah. So the contracted services is the 2.5 million for the bridge strengthening, because it's a study, it's not really an asset that you put on your books. So it's just contracted services. Additionally, in there is the other feasibility study and the, boat launch maintenance of 6,000. As you go down, the 71,000 is for the Bridge of the Gods Trailhead grant.
Yeah, so that is exactly the Bridge of the Gods Trail,
And then-
and that's the LGGP, and then
And the 162 is
is
the
the RTP.
RTP.
Yeah, and that's a Capstone Trail System.
And then the 2.4 million. That I think you guys are accustomed to seeing. Any questions on that? No? Okay, and then non-allocated, so I'll point this out now, I think Don has already seen it. There's a slight variance between what's here in the budget and the debt service schedule that was also included. And that's because we weren't sure when we were gonna make the payment of accrued interest on the Flex 2 and 4 loan. And so this amount is assuming we don't make a payment on that interest between now and June 30. And so we wanted to make sure it was in the budget in case we needed to make that payment next year. But this $1,279,661 is including the outstanding interest that's owed on that loan. And then the contingency amount. Any questions? Do you want me to go through the specific debt service loans? No? Are there any questions that we haven't covered?
So where did you say the rents were from Exopia? Where do they show up?
Commercial properties, and that's where you see an increase of from around $800,000 actual. The less like 6. You take what, my days are good.
We're looking for the spreadsheet.
I just don't know.
11 or 13 if you're on.
So 22-23 actual ending was 802,000 and $860, and the 2024 proposed was 950,000. I believe that is where that was.
The 2023-24 budget was because the 1.4 was because we included maybe we were gonna have like 6. Okay.
I think it's our indirect already we did, but it.
I know for like maintenance wise, I was allocating the funds I would spend on that in commercial property. And that's how we started.
Gotcha. I'm following now.
So that amount is not included in the commercial property revenue, so that would increase that.
Perfect, great catch.
What is that amount, do you know?
I know it's like 1,700 right now, but it's
It's
gonna
17,
go up.
it's 1,700 until the first day that they open, and then it goes to 3,500. So that revenue is not recorded in this budget, which means that it would not be able to be spent. So I have a balanced budget without it. So we're more than happy to start with a larger funding balance, but that was good. Thank you.
That'll give you an extra, any balance.
Was donated in
Yeah.
May. Okay.
For the next fiscal year, it's clear.
Oh, right.
I'm sure you got that as well.
Right, you're right.
42.
Yeah, you got this one.
Any additional questions?
Do we want to add that to the $900? That where we're gonna put it?
In commercial property.
In commercial property.
Welcome to do that.
Oh, I'm just asking.
I guess it's up to you guys. If we don't have any expenses to go with that increase, The only change is unappropriated fund balance at the end. So I'm happy to do whatever you guys wanna do. We can realize that we're gonna be short on that.
You don't think we'll need that money for the building at
Yeah,
all?
no, you're right, it needs to be in.
Christmas lights.
It's a great guy.
So.
Remember, you got take care of the blessings.
No Christmas until somebody just like.
It'd be great to have it.
It's gonna go through a major, it's going through a major remodeling process right now on X's dime, as well as the project that we're gonna do. Like, in theory, like, there's not a lot that can go wrong with that building because it's all brand new, but we should set aside. I think we did it. We set it aside, we just didn't recognize it in revenue.
Yeah,
That would make sense.
I think I did, and I remember having it, I have it on my notes.
Okay.
What about, the,
Actually, no, I'm gonna go back because the number that we have on this sheet is only 840,000.
Yeah, that's it.
So the 42,000 gives us
That's what
902.
Okay.
So it is in
Thank you, Mark. I was killing it.
Good job, Parker.
So it is in there.
Too many spreadsheets. 860, did I say 840?
Yeah, okay. 860.2, okay.
so it's in.
It is. in-
That's good. Is the addition of the we're doing for that building included in this year's budget or this year's?
We're hoping that we'll have some money left to
Okay.
go that way, that would. In theory, we get our extension, yeah, no, we're talking about, the.
Oh, yeah.
If we have to have that, we get all the dry.
Are we planning on installing any part they gonna pay for it and we're just reimbursing them? Okay. Because it's like, they probably need it soon. But we probably-
So we did have one change to the budget, we added that 30% for me to negotiate with, for the camp host, so there would be that, that would need to be recognized that we were looking towards moving for the document.
So I have one thing about the debt service, and anybody who's been part of this has heard me say this a number of times.
Absolutely.
And that's, I think it's embarrassing that we're still paying on the business park road improvements and paying interest on that. That's bad business practices. We've been paying on that for years and we only owe 33,000.
That was also budgeted for this previous year. I chose not to pay it off because I was waiting for Marina and Co to come in and make sure our finances. It's been a lot of pulling back on some of our spending this year and slowing things down based on where we currently are with Marina and Co and a better sort of visibility of our finances. That is a loan that we can pay off before the end of the fiscal year.
And I'm not just pointing fingers.
No, I know,
This has been there for
I'm
years.
telling you, you're correct. And the reason that I didn't do it was because we were wanting to get our books more in order. But that is a loan that we can pay off before the end of this fiscal year, like we said we would. So thank you for calling it out.
And then the other thing is reality is we're $14.6 million in debt. And I would like personally to see a more aggressive track of paying these things down instead of just paying what's the minimum payments. I think that's bad business practice.
So, proposal we made, and I don't think it's implemented, is the fact that, on these debts, if we, because right now we're quarterly or biannually making these payments, if we switch that to a monthly payment, it'll increase at least the payoff rate considerably over the life of the loan. So, you know, that's one strategy that we can do that doesn't cost us anything other than more, you know. And some of it, is it any of it done on automatic withdrawal?
No.
So anyway, it seems that that would be something that would increase our payoff rate, or so that we could pay it off more quickly without actually making any effect other than reducing the amount of interest that we're accruing on their loans. So we talked about that last year with the previous accountant, but obviously that didn't happen, so.
But it would be nice if the port commission would look at choosing a percentage that they would pay constantly over what's required. So things get paid down faster. It's a scary place to be in, over $14 million worth of debt for a small town that we are. So just a thought.
I agree with that, but I will say, I learned last year, and infrastructure agreement, I can't remember, but there is no cap for loans for ports. So we can, even though it is bad practice, we still have the ability to get more loans if necessary, so it's not a detriment.
Yeah, but if
Is that
our rates
right?
went down for some reason, you never know. In 2017, I sat here with whoever the manager was at that time, and I said, "You're estimating the bridge toll's too high," and he goes, "No, we're not. There's nothing gonna change the bridge." Well, we had a fire, and it changed the bridge tolls. So we always have to be looking forward to, you know, what can happen.
Yeah.
That is something that's gonna happen with the commission in the future. Marine and Co represents a partnership for the Cascade Boss. Matt weighs in very heavily on the things that we're doing. And he's gonna report to the commission at taking a look at some of our debt and a strategy for paying some of those down. So, yeah.
I would, do we need to do something, official? We need to, determine to change our, payment strategy on our debt service to monthly rather than quarterly.
I think that's something we do at a commission meeting with just the commission.
Okay.
It will also be something we have to work with our vendors on. Because we might pay it monthly, but they might not recognize it monthly.
So you're not recognizing that savings.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So,
So that's something else I have to be looking
It
into.
just makes more administrative work for us.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about loans with big, you know, that have a large amount on them, that the accrued interest is considerably more on a quarterly than it is on a monthly. So, but
There's spreadsheets that do all that.
anyway, but I think this new commission is definitely gonna be very proactive about considering all of the different things that we can do that will benefit the port, like lowering our debt service, et cetera. But
Well, and if the debts we're taking on pay for themselves by the buildings that they're being leased out, then it really the bridge shouldn't have a huge impact on that piece anyway. They're paying themselves.
So far, that's been reality.
Yeah.
Literally, it's not been reality.
When you make it reality.
COVID did us too, in the same way, we had people asking us to pay the rents and, you know, so.
COVID was right.
Never, we're better to be on the other side of that. Your finances are a mess, check into Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey philosophy, running the port would be great.
Okay, are there any more questions? Do we want to entertain a motion to pass the budget tonight?
I think we could, and with that, with the modification of adding the 30%,
Do we also need to make a modification that I will be paying off the Cranwell Road loan? Okay, so
They'll be, it's just, all doesn't matter.
it'll be in this fiscal, it doesn't matter, just want to make sure it didn't need to be changed to be reflected in the debt service.
so I'll make a motion that we approve the budget as presented
With the 30% change.
with the 30% change, correct?
I thought you didn't ask for public comment.
Oh,
We got people on.
Oh, thank you, Melissa.
Other ones on the line, want to call?
well, don't we make a motion and then pass it and then ask for comment, or do we do comment before that?
Motion in a second.
We can, we can do a motion in a second prior to the vote then.
Yeah.
Comments?
So we have a motion made by
I
Brad.
also made a motion,
Pass the
please,
budget.
have a second.
Okay, okay, you're not the president.
Oh,
waited so long to be.
Commissioner, second motion.
Yeah.
Who was the second? I'll second the motion.
Okay, and we have a second.
Oh, you
To approve the budget with the campground change of 30%. Public comment.
I think all we see is an iPhone.
The other one is me.
Potentially Chris.
Okay.
He said he was gonna join and listen.
I would say we're pretty good. We get an iPhone that checks in quite well, doesn't do much, so.
Okay, so no public comment. So do you wanna do a person by person vote or just a general?
You're the president.
General vote? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the budget passes. No more meetings, right?
I was not. And yes, the last third. Stay in here.
That's all I'm gonna try to do.
We're not, we're not closed yet. You're hired.
Maybe we're not gonna adjourn the minute, it's not over.
Yeah.
We need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I wish we adjourned the meeting.
I'll second.
Meeting is adjourned.
See, there's almost technology to reality, so say, I.